afternoon. Welcome everyone to South Suburban Missionary Baptist Church, a church where God is up to something. We are located at 15201 South Lexington Avenue in Harvey, Illinois, and our pastor is the Reverend Dr. Annette Jones. I am Reverend Melanie C. Jones, and I am joining you as this month's host for our midweek moment. As you know, every month we discuss important topics that influence our community. South Suburban Missionary Baptist Church is a community that is concerned about educating people from all ages. In line with Black feminist writer Bell Hooks, I believe that education is the practice of freedom. In this sense, this midweek moment series is entitled Back to School. As we think about August as a month of new beginnings, it is also a month where many of our students return back to school. This year, in past years, we've talked about preparation for college. We've talked about all that you need in order to prepare to return back to school in that effort. But this year, we wanted to focus on particularly graduate and professional schools. We've invited professionals, students, experts to talk about their journeys in the various disciplines, from law school to medical school to business school to graduate school, and how have these experiences in graduate school or earning advanced degrees ultimately helped to prompt or catapult their professional career. I am so excited this week to welcome to the platform Symone Fowler-Canty. Symone, welcome.
Thank you. I am so happy to be able to join with you all today. Because as a high schooler, undergrad student, grad student, I was always trying to attend panels and discussions about everything med school. So I'm happy that I could be here today.
Thank you so much. So, Symone, tell us a little bit right now about what you're doing and what degree you're pursuing currently.
Yes, so right now I'm going into my second year of medical school. I'm currently on summer break, and on summer break, I'm working on a research project of my own. The project is mainly focused on working with individuals of color and talking about skin cancer and how to prevent skin cancer in our community. So I'm truly enjoying it because I'm very passionate about healthcare literacy and just talking to people about their health, helping them figure out how they can best take care of themselves. So this project has been very rewarding and fun for me. So that's where I'm at right now. And so in a couple of years, I'll be choosing my specialty. But right now, I'm just finishing up my preclinicals. So, yeah.
Awesome. We are so proud of you. I want to jumpstart the conversation by asking what inspired you to pursue a doctor of medicine?
Yes, so I feel like what inspired me was I was actually working in HR at the University of Chicago, and I didn't really find it to be exciting for me. And so I was looking for ways to um, uh, find something that I was more passionate about. And I knew I liked working with children. And so luckily, Lara Vida Children's Hospital was right up the street from where I worked. And so I started volunteering at the Children's Hospital. And I mainly just served as support for the kids because most of them were critically ill and had chronic diseases. So I was just there to provide comfort, support, and just be a friend. But I realized pretty early on that I wanted to do more. I wanted to be in a position where I was taking care of the kids, making a plan for how they could be better and get healthier. And so that's when I seriously started to think about medical school and becoming a doctor. So I think it really all stems back to volunteering at a children's hospital and just really, I enjoy meeting new people, helping people in the capacity that I feel a physician gets to do, and just always wanting to learn about the body has been my passion. So that's why I decided to go to medical school.
Awesome. I think one of the kind of goals when people talk about professions or jobs or careers that they are thinking about when they grow up, one of the kind of first ones that folks rattle are like doctors, lawyers, all these kinds of things, but not exactly sure of what it takes in terms of preparation in order to
Yeah.
become, right, a doctor or a lawyer and so forth. So my question to you is, why go to medical school?
Yeah, so I feel like once you get to a point in life where you know that you are very interested in becoming a medical doctor, you know you want to be in a position of leadership. You know, maybe you were a leader in a children's organization at your church or an organization at school. You just naturally like to lead, and you also like to work on a team. And you know you want to, you know, improve healthcare disparities and be a healthcare advocate. That is when you want to seriously think about medical school, because that is where they teach you all about the diseases that impact our communities, as well as just how to have good bedside manners and communicate with patients. And that is the place for training. So that was the best decision for me in order to become a doctor, was to first go to medical school to get my foundation and learn how to be a doctor. So.
Yeah, I imagine that the preparation for medical school is not easy. That there are steps that you need to take and things that you may need to consider at the undergraduate level or even examinations after you've completed undergraduate degrees or even other graduate study. Can you tell us a little bit about what are some of the prerequisites for consideration for medical school? And then tell us a little bit about your journey. Like, how did you prepare?
Yeah, so there are prerequisites for medical school. I think the term that's thrown around a lot is pre-med classes. And so pre-med classes are the classes you will take as an undergrad. You can major in any degree that you want if you want to go to medical school. I think sometimes it's a misconception that you have to major in the sciences. You don't have to. If you find that you're you're really interested in psychology, you can major in psychology or whatever field you want to major in. But you have to take your pre-med classes in order to get into medical school. And so the pre-med classes are all STEM. So you have to take biology, chemistry, physics, and mathematics as well. You may want to take some higher level science classes, but those four are the four basics that you have to have. And I don't want to overwhelm anyone about it, because the good thing is you have 4 years. You have the entire undergrad journey to get all those classes in. So, you know, as an undergrad, you just maybe just want to start off with one or two, maybe just a biology class. Then you're a sophomore, you may want to do biology and chemistry. Then you're juniors, you do biology, chemistry, and physics. So definitely take a stepwise approach. It's so important that because this journey has challenges, that you have to extend yourself grace. So, you know, take your time, figure out how you need to study, how you like to take in information, and, you know, just take it one step at a time. And so once you finish those classes, and it is important that you perform well in them, you're going to want to take your MCAT. The MCAT is an exam that you have to take to get into medical school. So there is a class component and a test component to fulfilling those requirements. And many people, you know, sometimes they have to take the exam more than one time, and that's completely okay. The most important thing is that you are always improving and that you are getting the highest score that you can get. And so for me, I took my pre-med classes at Spelman College. That's where I went for undergrad. And then I went off to grad school to take higher level science classes and just better prepare myself for medical school, because medical school, it does have its challenges. And then after that, I took my MCAT exam. So I entered medical school last year, and that was my journey. So I kind of, you know, you kind of just take it one step at a time. Throughout undergrad and grad school, you're going to want to volunteer and be in positions of leadership, maybe do research. So that is a time to figure out your passions and just allow that to steer you on the road while also making sure you have all your prereqs solidified as well. So.
I think that's super helpful. What I heard you saying is you don't necessarily have to major in the science in order to prepare for medical school, but you do need to have as an undergraduate or take undergraduate course in the sciences. So that's biology, chemistry, physics, and mathematics. And
Mm-hmm.
then hopefully you'll have some time to prepare both in the class component as well as the examination for the MCAT exam, which will
Mm-hmm.
help you to apply for medical school. And I like your sense. Take it step by step. Some of us feel
Mm-hmm.
so overwhelmed. I have to check all these boxes. But if the journey takes you longer, it's okay, right?
It's definitely okay. Yes. I think
Yeah.
I'm almost certain that the average medical student age is 24, if not 25. So a lot of people tend to, you know, they may teach for a while and then they come back to medical school. I think what's most important is that you prepare yourself by taking those classes, taking them seriously, doing your best in them. So when you get to medical school, you're ready to go and you have the knowledge that you need to succeed. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, if it's a dream that you have, stick to it and
Yes.
take the prerequisites one by one, and it's possible for
Mm-hmm.
you to succeed.
Yes.
How do you choose a good medical school? Choosing colleges is always about fit and about class size and about, location and
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a HBCU like both of us attended, or it's a state school or a private school, right? There are all these questions and considerations. How do you choose a good medical school?
Yes, this is probably one of my favorite questions because I do think you should take your time and think about, what is important to you. Do you like to be close to family? Are you okay with not being close to family? And I pose that question because in medical school, you're going to need support. You're going to need your church family, your friends, anyone who has been supporting you. So that's one thing to think about is location. Do you like urban environments? Do you like rural environments? You may also want to weigh out going in-state versus maybe a private school, an HBCU, a public school that's out of state, because the good thing about being in-state is in-state tuition. And so you may want to consider your costs as well. But some more important things to think about is, what are you passionate about? If you like serving the community, you want to focus on schools that are dedicated to improving healthcare disparities in minoritized communities. Whereas if you're really passionate about research, you may want to go to an institution that's really big on research. So those are a few things that I would think about is, one, you want to make sure you have a support system at the school and a support system outside of school. You may want to think about cost and location and just making sure you're in a place where you can pursue your passions, and looking into mission statements and seeing if what you're passionate about is what the school is driven to work towards.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah. I think that in terms of choosing a school, like you said, it's how does the school itself align with your interests, and the
Mm-hmm.
more that you can marry the two, the perhaps more exciting, right, and more
Mm-hmm.
fulfilling your experience. Because any school, any graduate or professional school is already grueling in some
Right.
way. Kinds of subjects that you're engaging and asking for you to master or to produce a kind of sense of expertise in the field. So you want to go to a place where you can see you being most fulfilled at.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about second career. Folks who have started a career and thought about taking a pivot, and have always held on to a dream, maybe to become a doctor or maybe to go to medical school in some way. Is medical school really an option for a second career, folks?
Yeah, and that's another good question because I absolutely believe that no matter how much time you may have spent in a different field or even still in the healthcare field, if you decide that you really want to become a medical doctor, there is a space for you in this field and in medical schools. I have a lot of classmates who are non-traditional students. They may have spent some time getting a degree in public health or teaching. They may have worked completely outside of the entire medical field. And so if you find yourself um, still wanting to pursue medicine, I think it's well worth the time to maybe go back to grad school, take a few classes, and then apply to medical school the next cycle. Medical school is it's there and it's not going away. And so whenever you feel like it is your time to start pursuing it, I definitely encourage people to do so.
Absolutely. Let's talk about costs, right? The biggest piece in terms of preparing for any sense of school is how much does this cost? And that
Right.
raises questions of debt or even cost benefit analysis. And does the cost really measure or weigh significantly in terms of how much does this benefit me long term? So, what do you suggest, or what do you know about the typical costs associated with medical schools?
Yeah, so medical school, I will say, is one of the more expensive graduate and professional degrees to work towards. I would say that that's when I begin to ask people about, how do they feel about staying in state? Because that's just one way that you can really kind of decrease the cost of going to medical school. There are some scholarships associated with going to medical school. I have a scholarship at my school, so scholarships do still exist at the professional level. You always want to ask and apply for them and see which ones you're eligible for. Um, but in general, the main costs associated with medical school would be tuition, of course, as well as room and board. So you want to make sure um, you have enough money for where you will be living throughout the 4 years of medical school. Sometimes people do choose to get, one or two or three roommates just to kind of cut down on the cost of living if that's what they feel like will benefit them. But you do want to just think about your the cost of just being an adult, really, because you will have your housing, you will have to make sure you have enough food, gas, transportation, and things of that sort. So it's very similar, I would say, to undergrad, the cost that you will want to think about. Um, and another tidbit that I just wanted to add is a lot of people, when they do decide to go to medical school, they may consider paying off credit card bills or paying off a car note if you're like really close to just finishing it off. That way, they've gotten rid of just a few of those major costs that kind of follow you. So that would be like my main advice is if there's anything that you can kind of get rid of, that would be a way to kind of decrease your costs. But in general, you want to think about your tuition, your room and board, and the school will allot a loan amount every year that you can take out to cover all of those costs.
Mhm. And I imagine that as you assess those costs, you're also thinking about that when choosing a good medical school, thinking about costs as well. Is the tuition higher here, or are there more opportunities here in terms of scholarship that may help you to decide something or
Hmm.
decide where you will land? Mhm.
Yeah, and a good thing is that there are, I forget the actual term, but if you do decide that you want to go into, per se, primary care, maybe you want to be a family medicine doctor, or maybe you want to be a pediatrician, OB-GYN, a psychiatrist, is that even if you do have to take out loans to go to medical school, is that there are programs that will pay off those loans for you as you are working as a doctor. So there are a few different ways to pay for medical school as well as pay off the loans that you may take out.
Yeah, I think on like a Google search, it says that, the average medical school cost per year is somewhere around 60 to 70,000. And I
Hmm.
imagine that's mainly tuition, and then adding costs in terms of living might be additions to that. So when you think about that in terms of debt per year, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's also something to think about. At the same time, we think about graduate and professional schools. We know that the earning potential after
Mm-hmm.
you leave these positions maybe will be likely higher. So there's possibility to pay off that debt over
Yeah.
time. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that won't mean your first 5 or 10 years out. It may mean a little bit longer, but there are possibilities that you'll have in order to pay off those costs.
Yes.
And that's where you really begin to see the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Definitely.
So, what is the biggest misconception about medical school?
Um, I would say a big misconception about medical school is that sometimes um, I think people may go into medical school thinking they'll never have time for anything else other than medical school. You may think that every single day, all day, you'll be studying, you're not going to have a life, you'll never see your family. I would say that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions of medical school. I do see my family and friends on the regular basis. Part of that is because I do live close to my family, but you will for sure have time to still see your loved ones. You'll have time to do regular things. You know, if you like working out or if you like going out to eat with your friends, you will still have a social life. You may not be able to socialize as much as your other friends who are your same age, but you will be able to create a balance. And so I definitely don't want anyone to worry about signing their life away. You will have time to have some fun along this journey. And so um, that is something I would definitely want to share with people.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think graduate school definitely teaches you discipline, but it also teaches you
Hmm.
ways to think about balance and harmony. That
Hmm.
in order to work hard, you also need to have outlets where there's social interaction.
Right,
You also need
right.
places that nourish you spiritually,
Hmm.
physically, right? And so keeping those practices instead of seeing, these social events that some you can do every weekend or every, time you want, it becomes
Hmm.
more of how do I schedule? How do I
Right,
bring this into my life in a way that is meaningful, but in a way that I can manage, right? And that's
definitely.
mhm, mhm.
Definitely. A schedule will become your best friend in medical school. So, once you start, you're going to figure out my morning person and my night person. And when you figure out when you study best, that's when you can start carving in those things that are really important to you every week, like working out or just taking time to cook, taking Sundays to go to church. You will have time to do those things that nourish you and the things that you really enjoy.
Mhm, mhm.
Hmm.
So, the last question I wanted to ask is what are the benefits of a degree in medicine? I think we already started talking about this in terms of earning potential once you get into your
Hmm.
career. But even after medical school, there are some other processes that you might have to take in terms of residency and some other ways. So, what are the benefits if you can gather any?
Yeah, so essentially, after medical school, you go into residency, and that's when you would specifically start training in the field that you would like to be in for your entire career. So that can be OB-GYN, you could become a general surgeon, any field of medicine, you would do a residency program for them. And that's also when we start getting paid. So medical students are always very happy about residency. So half of the journey you do get paid. So the medical school part, you can may be able to have time to do like a side job, but once you get your residency, you will actually have a salary, which is nice. Um, and then after you finish your residency training, you now get to work out in the field, and that can look really different for so many different people. There are fields of medicine where maybe you get to just work 3 days out of the 5 day work week. That's a nice benefit for some people, especially if they know they want a family in the future. They may be business oriented or want to be entrepreneurs. As a medical doctor, you can have your own practice. You can work completely for yourself and tailor a healthcare model to your patients and practice medicine the way that you feel is best. So that's nice for individuals who like to work for themselves. There's also you can also work in research and still be a doctor. You can work for companies. A lot of skincare companies, a lot of even drug pharmaceuticals require a medical doctor to work on their team. So you get to do really cool things like being involved in new drugs that can help people. You can work in the public health field. There's so many things. There are also medical doctors as who work as news anchors who provide knowledge to the community. So there are honestly very cool things that you get to do with a medical degree that can benefit you, and always they're lucrative. So that's another good thing, is that there are many different ways that will increase your income, which helps with paying off the loans. So it really will be compensated for at the end of the day. But there's so many benefits of going to medical school, and in all of these aspects, you are helping people. So that is the great part of all of it.
Yeah. Well, Symone, thank you so much for joining the platform today. I wanted to do this particular series because I think, in terms of communities of color, often information about how to apply to graduate and professional schools or what is the experience is almost a taboo conversation. And we don't
Mhm.
share enough resources for those of
Yeah.
us who have pursued it for the next generation that might be coming up behind us. So I'm hoping that if someone has been thinking about medical school, that this conversation will help to jumpstart their process, and that they'll
Mhm.
also see some of the questions and some of our conversation is helpful for their journey and have a little bit more insider knowledge than perhaps they had just from reading, information about medical school. So your experience is invaluable. We are part at South Suburban, and I'm also your cousin. So
Yeah.
we're certainly a part of your community of support to say, keep going. We're so proud of you. We know that you're working very hard, and we really, really, really hope and want to support you to thrive. So thank you for taking this time out and for having this conversation with us today.
Yes, and thank you for having me. I'm glad that I could share the nuggets and the tips that I've learned along the way. So I hope this is helpful for someone, and I can't wait to meet all the future doctors as colleagues one day. And I wish everyone the best on their journey.
Absolutely. Thank you again, South Suburban, for joining us for your back to school midweek moment. For those of you who are following us, you can continue to follow us by typing in SSMBC on YouTube or at SSMB Church on Facebook, or you can sign up for our updates at southsuburbanmbchurch.org, or even support SSMBC so we can continue to bring these conversations to you at paypal.me/SSMBC. Again, thank you for this midweek moment, and we'll be back next week as we invite another guest who will be talking to us about graduate and professional schools and their journey. Thank you again, Symone. Take care.
You as well.